You are viewing a program by Organization for Women's Liberation. We are interviewing Azar Majidi, who you're seeing in your TV screen now. Azar Majidi is the chairperson of Organization for Women's Liberation. Azar, thank you very much for joining us in this program.
Thank you.
Today, we'd like to ask you a few questions. If we could discuss the details and the implications of the tragic event that happened in Nigeria on the 14th of April. As you know, more than 200 schoolgirls were abducted by the Islamist group Boko Haram. And there is still no news of their whereabouts, and international community and all the women's organizations and human rights organizations are very concerned about this event. We know that the Organization for Women's Liberation has issued a statement about this tragic event, and also you yourself have written an extensive article in the Farsi edition of the paper of the Organization for Women's Liberation. What is the importance of this event? Obviously, it is important, it's tragic, and that led to the organization to issue the statement that you have issued. And what is the content of the statement? Because as everybody knows, it's in Farsi, so it would be helpful if you could explain a little bit about it.
Well, it's important. Organization for Women's Liberation is fighting, struggling for women's rights, rights for girls, equal rights for freedom. And one of our main enemies that we sort of focus on is the political Islam or Islamic movements, which have come to power or have risen into as a very powerful actor in the region, like Middle East, Northern Africa, and countries which they have Muslim inhabitants. Islamic groups have become a very, very incredible threat to women's rights, to rights of girls, killing them, maiming them, violence and abuse of women. And this is another incident that more than 200 girls, as you said, school children, have been abducted by an Islamist organization in Nigeria. The number of girls were 276, if I'm not mistaken, but 53 of them, luckily, have escaped. So the rest are still in the hands of the Islamic groups. They have threatened that they would sell them as slaves in the neighboring countries. So far, no news, no information. It's just today there has been a video of some of the girls that been on internet by this organization.
What do you think is the agenda behind this tragic act? The Boko Haram as an Islamist organization, have they stated what their aim is, or what is your analysis of the whole event?
Well, you have to look at it from different angles. Boko Haram in the local language means Western education is haram, that means it's forbidden, is a sin. Boko Haram as an Islamic organization was founded in 2002 as an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. And from 2002, they claiming they want a state Islamic regime in northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is mainly inhabited by Muslim, and southern Nigeria by Christians. And so there is this conflict that's been given rise to by this organization, and apparently by the gap in economic situation of the two parts. The southern part seemed to be more affluent than the northern part, so the Islamic group find some kind of issues to steal people on that basis. And for the past decades, since this organization came to existence, thousands of people in northern Nigeria have lost their lives. And there's a very chaotic situation. It's not a civil war yet, but there's this fear that there might come a civil war in northern Nigeria. But the Islamist groups, what's their agenda? Their agenda is they want to come to power or share power and become more powerful. Ever since Islamic regime came to power in Iran in 1979, and before that we had the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, this whole new modern concept, we can talk about it later if you want, what I mean by this modern phenomenon of political Islam came into being. And they started going for power in the whole region. As soon as these Islamic organizations find some power, gain some power, they start first and foremost abusing women's rights, violence against women. Hijab, the veil, is their main banner. Gender apartheid is one of the main columns of their state or of their power structure. And then, of course, the education of girls, their participation in society, and by that they start taking back the society further back than it even was at that moment. We've seen that in Iran, we've seen that in Afghanistan, we've seen that in Sudan, in Somalia, and now in Iraq with the Islamists gaining some power. We've seen it in the past 3 years after the uprising of people in the Middle East and North Africa, how the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt or Al-Nehzat in Tunisia tried to gain power, and in Libya, which now there is an Islamic regime in power. All of these places, we've seen how women's rights, have been attacked, how violence against women have risen. So that's one of their agenda everywhere. So it's not strange that you see an Islamic group in Nigeria wants to just create chaos, very blind kind of attack on society, blind attack on girls and women and people. Any school can be, especially girls' schools. In Afghanistan, you see that almost every day that girls' schools are attacked by Taliban, and some girls are killed or abducted or acid thrown on their faces. This one, in this kind of situation, is probably a bit unique, that 200 more something students have been abducted, and they've come to created a YouTube on a video and put it on all internet and YouTube by the leader of this Boko Haram, this animal, claiming that they want to sell the girls. But see, the main thing is what these Islamic groups do, if they cannot gain power immediately, to create chaos, to create the sort of places of war and of violence. So it's intimidation, as terror means, intimidation of the people, intimidation of the society, creating a threat, a constant threat on the society is their strategy and tactic for sharing power or gaining power.
Well, as you said, it's understood it's a very political agenda on the part of this Islamist group. They've actually today announced that the girls are going to be held until all the imprisoned so-called their members, or they call them militants, had been released. So they've actually entered into some sort of negotiation with the central government to release them if their members have been released from prison. So it does sound as though it's a very political, there is a political agenda behind the whole thing for, as you said, for power. Can we just move on a little bit about the international movement in condemnation of this tragic event? I mean, all the newspapers, all the media are broadcasting the massive condemnation by ordinary people in different communities, in cities, in towns, to celebrities, to even stateswomen, especially in United States. And Michelle Obama held a little banner saying "Bring our girls back," which has been the slogan of the whole condemnation movement. So, what do you think of this the movement that has started? Do you think it will help to get hold, to release the girls, or it's going to intensify the political agenda that the forces are actually engaged in? As you said, the political agenda by the Islamist groups and the West and the government in Nigeria.
Yeah, very good question. And there were different points in your question that they should be addressed. They now have changed their. Before that, they had no demands. It was just a condemnation of Western education for girls or Western education, period. We know that Islamists have, even though it's the funny thing, the hypocrisy of it is they're using all the newest technology that are created mostly in the West, from mobile phones, satellite phones, all the arms and everything. But when it comes to so-called cultural values, that's where they come and say, no, it has to be forbidden, it's a sin. And by opposing to the West in that sense, sometimes they even manage to get some so-called leftist groups behind them because, for example, they're against West imperialism. They just buy this junk and rubbish from these organizations. But first they said that, and they said they're going to sell the girls. Once the campaign for the release became so widespread and internationally known, as you know, for the first 2 weeks, even more, the government did not react to the situation, did not really act to do much to free the girls. And it were the parents, first and foremost, who took to the jungle in search of their girls. And they found no army there or police trying to find them. They came and they protested to the government. They had demonstrations in Abuja, the capital, and other people of Nigeria demonstrated in some other cities. Once these demonstrations were widespread, there was this Nigerian lawyer which went to Twitter. You know, now virtual struggle has become a very important part, which is another thing that we should discuss another time, and tweeted this hashtag "Bring Our Girls Back." This gave another momentum. It came on Twitter, and now after 2 weeks, maybe even less, it's 1 million people have tweeted the same thing on website and on the social website. So now that they've become so well advertised, they've got the best coverage they could. Like Boko Haram, all of a sudden became a celebrity in the international arena. Before that, not many people had heard their name. Now they've become so famous, such a celebrity, so they brought a demand into their thing. Okay, free our political prisoners, we will free these girls. This was not on the agenda before. All of a sudden they became sophisticated terrorists. And I think they do that now because it's gained so much international publicity, especially statesmen or women have got involved in that. What we have to look at it's, okay, we know this terrorist group has to be condemned. They're vicious, they're reactionary, they're criminals. Their existence even is a threat to the society, to people, especially to women and young girls. But then on the other side, of course, any solidarity from people, it's welcomed and it's heartwarming, and it's nice for the parents to know that people in the world are in solidarity with them. But when it comes to the statesmen, the ruling classes of the Western governments, especially US, you have to know there is another agenda behind it. You would not have Michelle Obama, the First Lady of the United States, to do the same thing for all these girls who lose their lives in Afghanistan every single day. Teachers of the girls' school are killed, maimed, tortured. Young girls are the same. since before the occupation, we had Taliban killing and torturing and maiming people. But ever since the attack by the US and its allies, the situation in Afghanistan has got worse. Every day, tens and hundreds are killed, and women's situation has not really improved. Then we had the Iraq in 2003. You know, since the attack, 1 million people have died, have been murdered, killed by the war as a result of the war, directly or indirectly. Using depleted uranium in part of Iraq by US has created many disabled children, and they still are born every single day. Baghdad has become a big cemetery. Sectarian wars have taken all over the country. Islamists have gained power. The war in Iraq was a big advantage for Islamic regime. All of that. We don't see Michelle Obama. We don't see Hillary Clinton. We don't see any of them come and say anything for those people. And in Libya, NATO got involved militarily. What happened? Gaddafi went, a criminal dictator went, and another one, this time Islamic, came to power. By help of NATO. No one does anything there in Libya. So why all of a sudden Nigeria? Why all of a sudden we see Nigeria is this incident in this tragedy in Nigeria has become so important for the United States government. Michelle Obama is not just a woman coming there and talking. She is the spokesperson of the United States government. I haven't seen myself a picture of Hillary Clinton, but I've read that Hillary Clinton has joined the campaign too. And we know Hillary Clinton is one of the important figures in the ruling classes of the United States. Plus that, Michelle Obama on Saturday, I think, took over the weekly radio program of Barack Obama. For the first time, she addressed that radio program and talked about this event and said that Barack has ordered the government to do everything possible to help freeing these girls. These things are not just a humanitarian gesture, just a gesture from a mother who has two daughters herself and felt for the other mothers in Nigeria. I think there is a political agenda and probably another military agenda in United States program.
Yes, so you believe that the condemnation by stateswomen or people who are in power of, as you said, in the upper classes, it follows a political agenda and it's not a humanitarian action. And you think that it's hypocrisy?
Well, if it was only a press given by state sort of foreign ministry, then you could probably say it's just a diplomatic gesture according to protocol, international protocol. If Obama was asked in a press conference this question and he had condemned it, then it was okay. But this is not the case. On 6th of May, Obama was in an interview or in a speech, I'm not quite sure which, has mentioned that he hopes now with that heartbreaking incident in Nigeria, international community mobilizes and acts against Boko Haram. Why that? Why is he calling upon international community to do something against Boko Haram? You know, maybe I'm too suspicious, but we've seen Afghanistan and we've seen Iraq. What happened? In Afghanistan, Mujahideen were armed and helped morally and financially and strategically by US. Bin Laden was on CIA's payroll. They made him Bin Laden and sent him to Afghanistan. And then what happened when Taliban came? Taliban was in good relations with US until 2001, September 11, the Twin Towers tragedy in New York, when George Bush government decided to attack Afghanistan all of a sudden we started seeing the situation of women, stoning of women, killing women in stadiums, and burqi all over women in Afghanistan. All of a sudden, the international media, especially American media and British media, all they talked about was this terrible situation of women in Afghanistan. Before that, nothing. And then what happened? They attacked Afghanistan. They killed so many people. They bombarded the people, and all of that. And in 2003, when they wanted to attack Iraq, we started hearing about the weapon of mass destruction and Islamists there, and then they attacked. All of them were lies. And see what happened 10 years after in Iraq. It's become a total cemetery, a real ruined society. So many people killed, and so many women actually from Iraq are taken to sold as sex laborers in the neighboring countries. Does Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton talk about that? No, they don't. Does Obama talk about that? No, he doesn't. So that's. But all of a sudden here, this incident, you have Michelle Obama coming, addressing the president's radio weekly and putting her face on all the social media every single day, every hour for the past 3 days. We've seen Michelle Obama, the first item on all the international news. There must be something behind it. That's what my analysis of this situation tells me.
So you think that the US government and maybe other Western countries are using this tragedy as an excuse to invade Nigeria?
I'm not sure if they're going to invade Nigeria, but what it is, look at it. Since 2001, that our analysis by Mansour Hekmat, a word after September 11th, I recommend people to read that if they haven't read it already on www.m-hekmat.com. He gives a very, very deep and very insightful analysis of the situation. He talks about the war of terrorists. If you remember, George Bush announced a war on terror, and he got the whole Western countries behind him as his allies to attack Afghanistan. Then American government had a big, very deep sympathy of people because of what happened in New York. Everyone was just disgusted with that tragedy, that criminal act in New York. So he talks about, it's not war on terror actually, it's war of two poles of terrorism. One of them is Islamist terrorism, Islamic terrorism, the other one is state terrorism led by US. Israel is another partner in it by the whole Western governments. Ever since, we've been seeing in the past 13 years, this war has been intensified and aggravated and created more terror, created more crimes, created more dark scenarios in the region. We've had Islamic regime in one side, we had Al-Qaeda and other Islamic groups, and then we had the state terrorism. They're fighting against each other, and there are people who are killed, people who are maimed, tortured, or sort of displaced, and a lot of women and girls have been turned into slaves, sex slaves in that part of the world. And then we come to the 3 years ago when the uprisings started, that brought a lot of hope to freedom-loving people and egalitarian people. And then what happened? We saw then Islamists come into the scene too. And the West and US have been behind these Islamists, behind Muslim Brotherhood, behind Al-Nusrat in Tunisia, and also in Libya. They brought the Islamist government into power. In Syria, they have helped the Islamists. Now they might have taken back a bit from the jihadis, but they started doing that. Turkey had a very important role there. They defended the Turkey as the Islamic, a very good moderate Islam model, and they wanted to export it to all these regions. So this has been going on. Now the whole region is just turned into bloodshed. Somalia And Sudan, for the past, I don't know, maybe 20 years, whatever, have turned into that kind of bloodshed, and there's no civility left in those societies. And again, you see the footprint of the West everywhere. There is something they tend to do, they want to do. What exactly we're going to see? And I think the main actors are US and Britain, that so far have sent experts to help. We'll have to see after experts what will come.
Just to mention, it was in the news that even Israel has approved to send help
I'm not
with
surprised.
the United,
I'm not
with the United
surprised.
States forces. So I'm just going to ask you the last question. Who do you think holds the power and the tools to free the abducted girls?
Well, it's, you can't just give a big macro solution when something like that has happened. We have to put pressure on the government to free these girls. To be honest with you, if it were me, if really the lives of these girls could be exchanged, then I would free the political prisoners to have these girls back and to their families. That their life and their safety is the most important thing. But this is not the end of it. Even if we have all the girls freed, it's not going to be the end of terrorism, crime, bloodshed, and atrocities against people, especially women and girls, by the Islamists. It's going to continue, especially if they win something now, they're going to intensify their fights. And the West takes this gesture of fighting against them and intensifies the war even further. So, but one of the actually important points that in the same essay that I mentioned, World After September 11th is mentioned, the world is not only two poles. The pole of Islamic terrorism or state terrorism is also the third pole, which is people, the humanitarian people, the freedom-loving, egalitarian people who want to see a world free of terrorism, free of violence, free of abuse. They want a world with equality, with freedom, peace, and that's the pole we have to try to mobilize and organize. We've been calling for that, I know, for the past 30 years. We haven't succeeded that much, but maybe we could call upon whoever sees this video to spread this word, that we cannot depend on the state terrorism to get rid of the Islamic terrorism. We cannot help the Islamic terrorism to get rid of state terrorism and what they have done in places like Iraq or in Afghanistan or the Palestinian situation. We need the third pole to get rid of them both, actually. It seems maybe a very big demand, but that's the only way in order to stop all these atrocities, violence, killings, murder, and abuse.
Thank you very much, Azar Majidi. All we can say at the end is international solidarity for a better world, I suppose. This was a program by Organization for Women's Liberation. You listened to Azar Majidi's interview about the tragedy of abduction of more than 200 girls in Nigeria. To read more about the analysis of the political trends in the last decade, please do visit Mansour Hekmat's website, that is www.m-hekmat, that's HEKMAT.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.